Independent Women's Forum policy analyst Patrice Lee Onwuka joins us now on, what this means for the president. And, he'll be blamed, Patrice, if the economy does slow down, even if it doesn't go into a recession. So I would assume they're a little nervous looking at these numbers in the White House this week. What do you think?
Well, certainly. I think there are some economic data out today and this week that hint that there should be some concern. The fundamentals, though, of the economy seem to still be strong. Consumer spending being one of them. That is actually the driver of the economy right now. And if people feel comfortable enough to open their wallets, to go out and go on vacations during these last few weeks, then I think that still is holding up our economy. And so that's something that the president can continue to still hang his hat on.
Right. It's really interesting because a lot of it comes down to timing. Sean Spicer was on yesterday, and I asked him similar questions. He says, Bob, by next July, that's when people will really be thinking, well, how do I feel about the economy and my situation? Then I have to start making a decision, July and August, obviously into the fall, about the presidential campaign. So that's the debate is, if we're starting to slow now and then the consumer starts to feel it, is there something the president can do to get out ahead of it? I assume he thinks it just comes down to what the Federal Reserve does.
Well, he's certainly going to lean on Jerome Powell and hopefully a bit before the next Federal Reserve meeting to cut rates and do so in a significant way to at least give some stimulus back into the economy. But, I think in continuing to remind Americans, what the administration has delivered is going to be important. There are people who voted for President Trump who certainly love tax cuts and love deregulation and how that has stimulated the economy. But they also love other things that he's delivered, promises he delivered on, whether you look at the Supreme Court, the courts in general, when you look at, some of the just pushing back on a lot of the changes in social policy and culture. Right. I think those are things that are going to be in people's minds.
And those people are probably in his camp anyway, right? I mean,
they
if you think about the people who will decide the election, theoretically, if it's similar to last time, and those, the big three states that we always talk about, and they're kind of similar, right? If it's Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin, and there's some other states that are like that, if you look at manufacturing slowing down, for example, as it's starting to now, those are the people impacted by that. The trade war, what China's doing on the tariff side, is hurting our farmers. So it's really interesting because some of those people that are getting hurt by those policies are actually, at least the data shows, is so far sticking with the president. And you wonder if that'll be the case, a year from now.
Well, they may be thinking of the longer-term impact of what, holding China's feet to the fire will mean when it comes to, real fair trade, not just trade deals that China backs out of or stealing our intellectual property. And they also may be moved by some of those other issues. I think one of the big promises that the president made to particularly the Midwest Rust Belt folks is around roads and construction. Right. And so is it possible to get some sort of bipartisan movement on infrastructure? That's an issue.
Maybe we should have another infrastructure week. We've already had 5 or 6 of them, or whatever.
Well, we
it is,
have.
Right? So
the challenge for conservatives, though, is that is big ticket spending, and that's an area where we would be like, whoa, wait a minute.
Oh, the old debt and deficit thing comes up again. Patrice, good to see you. Thanks for coming on, as always.
Thank you, Connell.
Patrice Lee.